Why most fruit trees become unproductive after 5 years? Most people think that planting a fruit tree is a simple act of putting it in the ground, watering it, and waiting for years of abundant harvests. They see the nursery tags, they see the healthy saplings, and they imagine a backyard full of apples, pears, peaches, and cherries. Yet, within 5 years, many of these trees stop producing the way they expect. The branches grow long, the leaves grow dense, the flowers may appear, but the fruit is sparse, small, or often absent, and the frustration mounts. What people fail to realize is that fruit trees are not like annual vegetables that complete their life cycle in one season. They are complex biological systems that balance energy between growth, maintenance, and reproduction. And if that balance is ignored, the tree will always choose growth over fruit. In nature, a tree's goal is survival. Its evolutionary imperative is to reach sunlight, expand its canopy, and produce enough seeds to propagate. Fruit is not a priority, it is a byproduct. Without intervention, a tree will devote almost all of its energy to creating branches, leaves, and roots, which are essential for competing with other trees. This is why a wild apple tree in a forest may live for decades, grow 30 feet tall, but produce only a handful of fruit in a year. That same biological tendency is present in every backyard tree that is left unmanaged, pruned incorrectly, or planted without a long-term strategy. The first major mistake that most gardeners make is ignoring winter pruning. Winter, when the tree is dormant, is not a dead season. It is the time when a tree's energy is stored in the roots and trunk, waiting to be redirected. If you fail to prune at this time, the tree channels its energy into creating wood rather than fruit. Branches grow long and weak, the canopy becomes overcrowded, and sunlight fails to penetrate the inner layers. The tree becomes vulnerable to disease, pests, and structural failure, and the harvest diminishes. Summer pruning has its place, but it is the combination of correctly timed winter and summer pruning that directs energy toward fruiting spurs, the short branches where flowers and fruit develop. The second mistake is planting the wrong varieties for your climate and soil. Not all fruit trees are created equal. Some apple cultivars need specific chilling hours, others require cross-pollination, and some peaches are highly sensitive to frost during bloom. Planting a tree without understanding its environmental needs sets it up for failure from the start. It will struggle, expend energy compensating for stress, and fruiting will decline. The third mistake is neglecting nutrient and soil management. Fruit trees are heavy feeders, and while they are perennials that do not need replanting, they do require healthy soil. Nutrient deficiencies, compacted soil, poor drainage, or a lack of organic matter will stress the tree and reduce its ability to produce fruit. A tree that looks healthy in terms of leaves and branches may still be starving underground, diverting resources from flowers and fruit to basic survival. The fourth factor is improper spacing and light. Fruit trees need sunlight to generate energy for reproduction. A tree planted too close to other trees or structures will grow taller and spindly, trying to reach light. It will produce more leaves and vertical growth, but fewer flowers and fruit. Dense canopies also create microenvironments where humidity rises, diseases thrive, and pollinators cannot access flowers efficiently. The fifth factor is neglecting the biology of flower bud development. Many trees set fruit one year for harvest the next. A lack of pruning, incorrect timing, or damage from frost or pests can prevent proper bud formation. When the buds never develop, the following year yields little or nothing. Most gardeners only notice the absence of fruit when it's too late to intervene because they don't understand the cycles of reproductive growth versus vegetative growth. Another critical reason trees fail after 5 years is overgrowth without structural management. Without selective pruning, trees grow large, with heavy, poorly supported branches. In winter, snow or ice can break major limbs, permanently reducing the tree's productive capacity. Even if limbs survive, large trees become difficult to manage, and fruit that forms at the top cannot be harvested easily, leading to perceived unproductivity. Pollination is another often overlooked factor. Many fruit trees, such as apples and pears, require cross-pollination from compatible cultivars to set fruit reliably. Planting a single tree or incompatible varieties can reduce fruit set drastically. Bees and other pollinators are essential, and if flowers are dense, overcrowded, or poorly timed, pollination fails, leading to smaller or no harvests. Pest and disease management also plays a role in long-term productivity. Trees that are stressed, crowded, or poorly maintained are more susceptible to fungal infections, insect damage, and viral diseases. Even minor chronic stress compounds over years, gradually reducing flowering and fruiting capacity. Water management is equally critical. Both overwatering and underwatering can disrupt the delicate hormonal balance that drives fruiting. Roots that are constantly waterlogged will rot, reducing the tree's ability to sustain leaves, flowers, and fruit. Roots that dry out frequently experience stress that prioritizes survival over reproduction. Many gardeners unknowingly allow fluctuations that slowly degrade fruiting potential. One of the most subtle but powerful factors is energy allocation between vegetative and reproductive growth. In young trees, energy is focused on establishing structure. If pruning is neglected or done incorrectly, the tree continues to invest in vegetative growth even after the canopy has matured. This is why many backyard trees produce well in the first 3 or 4 years. They are juvenile and naturally allocate some energy to fruit. But once the tree reaches a certain size without proper intervention, all energy shifts to wood and production drops sharply. Soil fertility and micronutrients affect this balance as well. Trees deprived of boron, zinc, or magnesium, for example, may bloom less profusely or produce fruit that drops prematurely. Gardeners often respond by fertilizing generically, which can exacerbate the imbalance, stimulating growth rather than fruiting. Mulching and organic amendments support steady, balanced growth by improving water retention, soil microbiology, and nutrient cycling. Another reason fruit trees decline is human expectation versus biological reality. Many people assume fruit trees are low maintenance, that planting is enough, and that once fruit appears, it will continue indefinitely without input. This misconception leads to neglect, overgrowth, and eventually frustration. In reality, fruit trees require a management system combining pruning, fertilization, pest management, pollination, and harvest timing consistently over years. The cultural history of orchards supports this. Farmers throughout history, from ancient Roman villa gardens to medieval European orchards, understood that pruning, spacing, and variety selection were critical to longevity and productivity. Neglect led to trees that grew wild, produced poorly, and often collapsed under their own weight. Observing traditional methods reveals that longevity and productivity are rarely natural, they are cultivated. Timing is a recurring theme. Winter pruning, summer pruning, fertilization schedules, pest control, irrigation, and flowering all follow predictable cycles. Ignoring these cycles, or misaligning interventions, shifts the tree's energy away from fruit. One missed pruning in the first few years can mean decades of reduced harvest. Another overlooked factor is variety-specific vigor. Some trees are naturally vigorous, producing massive wood with few flowers unless carefully managed. Others are naturally compact but may decline if stressed. Selecting the right variety for the space, climate, and intended harvest is as important as any cultural practice. Rootstock choice also affects productivity. Trees grafted onto dwarf or semi-dwarf rootstocks produce manageable size, better fruiting patterns, and earlier harvests. Standard rootstocks, while large, may spend years building structure rather than producing fruit unless pruned and managed intensively. Climate and microclimate factors compound these issues. Late frosts, unusually wet seasons, prolonged droughts, or heat waves can all damage flowers, reduce pollination, and stress trees in subtle ways that accumulate year after year, leading to perceived unproductivity after 5 years. To prevent this, site selection, protective measures, and water management must be factored from the start. In short, most backyard fruit trees become unproductive after 5 years because gardeners underestimate the tree's biology, neglect structural pruning, fail to manage energy allocation, ignore climate and soil conditions, and overestimate the tree's resilience. A tree left to its own devices will grow tall, heavy, and beautiful, but will rarely feed the gardener reliably. Conversely, trees that are pruned correctly, planted in the right location, fed and watered appropriately, and managed with timing and foresight will continue producing for decades, often increasing yield as they mature. A 5-year decline is not inevitable, it is preventable. The knowledge is in timing, observation, pruning, and variety selection. Understanding the tree's natural tendencies, anticipating challenges, and designing interventions is what separates productive orchards from disappointing backyards. If you want your fruit trees to feed you reliably for decades, you must plan for growth, reproduction, and maintenance as a system, not as a one-off task. Careful pruning in winter, selective summer pruning, monitoring soil nutrients, managing pests and disease, selecting proper varieties and rootstocks, and understanding flowering and pollination cycles are all non-negotiable. The difference between trees that produce for 5 years and then languish versus those that produce for 30 years is knowledge and consistent action. This is why serious orchardists spend decades observing, experimenting, and refining their methods. Backyard gardeners can achieve similar results by adopting the same principles. Fruit trees are living systems, and their productivity is a reflection of the care, timing, and understanding they receive. 5 years is the point where neglect or ignorance often becomes visible, but it is also the point where consistent, informed care shows its first major payoff. Trees that survive and produce past this stage reward gardeners with reliability, abundance, and a deep understanding of seasonal cycles. Productivity is not magic, it is biology harnessed with intention. And for those willing to observe, learn, and act deliberately, fruit trees will reward decades of effort, providing not just food but also resilience, satisfaction, and a connection to natural rhythms that few modern practices can match. Remember, the secret is not planting more trees, but planting wisely, managing consistently, and respecting the biological priorities of growth, maintenance, and reproduction. When you do this, 5 years becomes not a limit, but the start of decades of fruitful harvests. And if you want more tips, insights, and practical strategies to keep your fruit trees productive year after year, make sure to subscribe to Science Garden. Hit the like button and turn on notifications so you never miss a guide that turns ordinary backyards into long-term food systems.